Okay, I think this is gonna be the last one I'm due with today. Maybe we'll see. Um, the last one I want to do here is about mistakes, and sometimes we think that there's mistakes are always the same thing, and they're not. And there are different tolerance levels of mistakes, and I want to prove this. I tested this a few days ago with some people, and it actually does work. It's kind of hard to do because I have to put myself into the mode of a non-native speaker. I have to think of myself as a non-native speaker. How I've taught people who are non-native speakers, I have to put myself in their things. I have to try to imitate their accent, put myself as them because I'm trying to do things that they do, which I would not normally do as a native speaker, right? So I got to kind of have to think about this, and I have to. It's kind of hard to do this. So I'm going to do this in a couple languages, probably two or three or four, I don't know. Um, but I'm going to show you. Um, the whole thing is we have a tolerance level of mistakes, and really there are levels of mistakes, and the user doesn't really care. The only thing is you want to make the least amount of funny mistakes, really bad mistakes, really bad mistakes. I said this in one of the videos that the whole thing about doing language technology is to avoid the really bad and ugly, right? But there are things that are bad, but they're not really that bad, because they are understandable. So I'm going to give a couple examples, and I'm going to say the really thing you want to avoid the ugly, okay, in doing language technologies, because you don't have to always avoid the bad, because the bad is really not that bad. I'm gonna show you this in a couple in these different examples, okay? So if I'm going to be speaking, I'm going to try to imitate. I'm going to try to do this with a few other languages. I'll come to English because the English one's the hardest for me to do because I'm a native speaker of English. So I have to think myself as a non-native speaker of English doing this, and this is kind of hard to do. I tried to do this the other day. And it was really hard to do. Okay, because I have to think backwards. I could do this in other languages because I learned these other languages, right? So I'm going to do this in a couple, and I'm going to kind of test this here. So if I say something in German, like if I say something in German, like ich ich haben meinen Hause. Ich haben meinen Hause. Ich haben einen Hause. Okay, I just made. Now you understand what I said. If those are German, right? You understood. That's okay. I made two mistakes. I did the conjugation of the verb have to a plural, but you understood I applied it to I, right? That was okay. And I had the possessive adjective as mine, but I should have, should mine. But you knew what I was saying, right? It's okay. It didn't. You didn't laugh. You understood it, right? Just like any native speaker understands a person that's speaking with a few mistakes. It's okay. The message got clear. It's not laughable, right? I'll give another example here. Um, yo tengas un hamburguesa. Okay, yo tengas un hamburguesa. Well, I just made two mistakes in Spanish, right? I said the wrong conjugation for have. I said the second person singular, rather than the first person. So I didn't say I said yo tengo. I should have said that. And I said un instead of una, right? So hamburguesa. I think it's Spanish plural, right? The feminine. So I made two mistakes, but you still understood what I said. For those of you who speak Spanish, right? You totally understood. Didn't matter. I've tested with a Spanish speaker and I've tested with a German speaker, so I've tested with the other speakers, and these examples work, right? And French, if I use the uh, I'm trying to think of an example. I got to think of an example here that I would use in French here. Um, actually the problem is French is you actually pronounce these things the same. So you got to think of things that have different pronunciations, and that's really different because French has a lot of things that are very similarly pronounced, but they're written differently. So it's really different. Um, um, uh, okay, I gotta think. Okay, I think I got it here. Um, je vais, je vais à les écoles. Je vais à les écoles. It's hard for me to do this because I'm pretty close to native speaker, so it's really hard for me to actually. I have to force myself to think like a student. So I pronounced this again the same thing. I didn't use the je vais. I said the je vais, which should be il va or tu vas. Okay, so there's a second or third person. I had a mistake there, and I said à les écoles instead of à l'école. Okay, so I made a plural mistake here. I did. I kind of made a dual, triple mistake here on that thing because it would be aux écoles or je peux à l'école. It kind of depends, right? But yeah, you understand what it is, right? You understand what it is. It's totally understandable. It's just different, but it doesn't make people laugh to just hilarious laughter, right? It's just okay. It's just a little mistake. That's okay. We still understood the message, right? And I'm getting another example in English, and this is the hardest one for me to do because I'm a native speaker, so I have to really think about this. And I have to actually put myself in the accent of somebody else because I got to make myself think like I'm a student doing this because it's really hard to do this as a native speaker. It's really hard to do this. I tried this the other day and was struggling with a colleague just trying to do this, try to imitate this thing. Okay. Uh, okay. Yeah, I got this one here. I uh, I eaten much apples. No, I eaten much apples. I eaten much apples. Now I made several mistakes there, right? So I said I eaten instead of I ate, right? And I said much instead of many. And I said apples instead of apples, right? So I made several mistakes. But it doesn't matter, right? You understood what I was saying, right? Because I said I start with I. And it's because of the way the syntax is in language. Now, if I start playing with other languages that have case systems, nominative, dative, and all that stuff. We had the German a few minutes ago where I was actually kind of playing with the nominative, and I was kind of playing with that and playing with the different endings on the nominative, that kind of stuff. And right there's the nominative. I could play with the dative, and I could play with I could play with different case systems and done that, right? Play with the accusative. I could have done that, and that's where it gets kind of. It would be good. I would want to maybe make another video where I actually start taking this further with multiple examples of longer sentences or more complex sentences, and doing this in a couple other languages in German, and kind of show that it really doesn't matter, right? And the Swiss, I've actually took a class with a Swiss teacher, teaching when I learned German. He said, it doesn't matter. Just simplify simplify all your declensions. It doesn't matter. And that's when I knew that was right, because I used to teach language, and I knew that I would teach people how to do this too. But he told me it doesn't matter. Just talk. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that he proved to me as a teacher that I hired to actually give classes to teaching, that he was actually using the same kind of approach, which is really important for if you're going to take this language technology, right? So what's really important here to understand is that, and I'll do another video that has more examples to take this further, right? But in these several examples, these languages here, and I can do this in Swahili too. Actually, I can't do it in Swahili because I've learned stock phrases in a certain way. I don't know how to say this in other ways, right? So, or I could probably do this. Donc, yeah, I can do this. I can do this in Swahili too. Okay, hujamba, bibi ni bwana, habari za asubuhi. Okay, now I mistake the hujambo for hujamba, and I said ni instead na. So I made a couple of mistakes in there. But you understand what I said, right? I had greetings. I said it. So this, again, there are different. It's okay. These are acceptable mistakes. And it doesn't really matter. And the computer is going to not make those exact mistakes. They're going to do other ones. But it's okay if the computer makes mistakes in a computer-generated voice, or computer-voided translation, or monolingual transcription, or whatever, speech to text, text to speech, or in translation, text to text, or whatever. It doesn't matter, because these things are not killers. But what people will affect people, and the really key thing here is when they're laughable mistakes, when they're really the wrong stuff, right? So I'll give one example, the French one, and this is really good here, and I'll finish with this one here. So I remember one time when I had some French friends come to visit the house that we just bought. Bought a used, already lived-in house, and we had moved in, and it was a mess. There was just a mess and stuff. And so I had some older friends come over. They had helped us actually look at the house before, and I want to present the house to him and his wife, but he had already seen it before. And they came in, and I said in French, excuse the bordel, and And the wife stopped me. She says, "Don't use that word. That's not a word." And I said, "Oh yeah, but that's the word. That's the dictionary version of the word um, because there is a word in the dictionary that means sorry for the house of prostitutes here. Okay, that was it. Sorry for but I used it. But if I changed the word and said, "Veuillez excuser le pagaille ou le beans ou excusez que c'est bordelique." Okay, if I changed the word slightly to make it an adjective rather than a noun, then I wouldn't have said house of prostitutes. I said it's messy, right? It's messy rather than house of prostitutes, or it's a mess. It's a mess. I have other words to use the mess, right? But I said, I know what the dictionary entry is. I know what it is, but everyone else I know has used this thing. They all use it, and everybody uses it in French, comedy French. It's just that their generation was not used to it. It's like you're not supposed to use this word, right? For that meaning. But actually, there's been a semantic shift in the whole language for generations. It's been happening. And I hear it every day, right? I hear my colleagues and friends and kids saying all the day. They're using this. I'm using the same expression they do. And I know the word. I told her I know the word exists. The actual word has an actual meaning in the dictionary, and there's a secondary meaning to it. But the secondary meaning is what the common, people do every day, right? Um, and so, but I do not. There was one example, and the last thing I'm going to finish off with on this one is that I do have an example where I said to a colleague, said to Port Island, he laughed. He was a guy my age. He says, "Hey, you know what? He says my wife and I, we did go to we reserved a he reserved a hotel in some country or something. They got there and it was a real house of it was a real hotel of prostitutes." He says that's the first example, the only example in his entire career that he ever actually the real word was used, right? So in French. So again, those are the laughable, funny mistakes, right? And so all these things in Google and all that where it's really laughable, what you want to do is avoid that, right? You want to avoid all those really laughable house of prostitutes or hotel of prostitutes, or a board. That's I can't remember a whorehouse, but okay, that's the word for it. I can't think of it. I'm thinking in French, but the whorehouse would be the thing. But I have to use really, really blatant examples here to show flagrant, blatant examples. It's really important to see that because those are the things that really make people laugh, and then that's really bad, right? Really negative. So the goal in doing language technology is to avoid those things. But it's okay to have the things that there's other mistakes that we had before because it's still okay. So really when you're doing quality evaluation, you got to think about this because really there are a lot of acceptable mistakes that are fine to keep them, and it doesn't really matter. And I'll get into that more as I talk about post editing and all that kind of stuff, and what do you have to post edit, and when you have to post edit, and what do you have to clean, and what's acceptable, and all that. I'm going to get more into that because I've done a lot of this monolingually and for speech systems and subtitle systems and for translation systems, and we'll get that. But going on, okay, so let's get going, and we'll get into these other videos. Thanks for listening.